Welcome back to the Rebellion, ladies and gents. I'm Shane Hazel. Across from me, I have the one and only Banks Wise. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Shane, I've got a little bit of deja vu there.
Take two.
But happy to be here for this Monday episode with some timely news about some funny things, some wonderful things, and some weird things.
Yeah, we've got some breaking news, man. And this, you brought this to my attention this morning. We're recording this on Saturday morning, and just a couple hours ago it broke that we have a peace deal, not negotiation, peace deal in Afghanistan now.
Well, so they're calling it a peace deal based on some conditions of negotiations.
I want to believe, Banks. I want to. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case over history. That, you know, we talk about getting out of places. We've talked about getting out of Afghanistan. We've talked about getting out of Syria. We've talked about getting out of Iraq. We're still in all those places.
So you know what my favorite part about this is, besides peace, which is definitely my first favorite part. You know what my second favorite part is?
Nope.
So it involves Pompeo and the fact that he did not want to go to this meeting, which is in, I forget the name of the Afghan town, but apparently he made a statement that said, "I'm only here because Trump insisted that I be here." And that little fact that he had to give this this speech about peace and so forth, and we're going to play some clips of it, parts of it which are just very well intentioned, on the surface at least, and like inspiring words.
Yeah,
that kind of makes me happy.
Yeah, it's being reported by Military Times right now that right now all U.S. troops are to leave Afghanistan in 14 months if the Taliban meets commitments of peace deal signed today. Now, this, or I should say Saturday, since you guys are listening to this on Monday morning, this is pretty amazing. I mean, we've been over there for damn near 19 years. I have my reservations in terms of how this is going to go down. There's a bunch of state actors over there from bureaucratic organizations that I call cabals that are obviously of the corporate military industrial complex amongst the others of the bureaucratic cabal that are over there. So the State Department, CIA, just to name a couple, NSA, things like that, where a lot of these guys don't want things to end over there because that's cutting off a revenue stream. The other thing that I think is very important in terms of looking at this is when you look at Pompeo, and I heard Bolton was not invited to this at all and said, hey,
Bolton was fired.
Yeah,
so.
He was fired, but like, we don't want your counsel on this. We don't give a damn what you have to say. He's got to be over there just, you know, crying in his cornflakes this morning. But the idea that Pompeo didn't want to go over there, I think Pompeo, you know, wouldn't want to go over there for a lot of reasons. One, because I imagine he is one of the most wanted men in the world for the Taliban. I mean, for a guy who has over and over and over, you know, whenever there's an end in sight, what does he always say? Oh, the world's a dangerous place, and it's always going to need the U.S. to intervene into sovereign countries. Like that kind of thing. I imagine if I was Pompeo, I wouldn't want to be there either for just the security of my own life. I
mean, having the backing of the United States, though, gives you a lot of confidence, and being able to do what you're saying, right? Always having this opinion of the America has to get involved in world affairs and getting away with it for so long, I would think would shield him from proper assessment of danger. So you might be right, but I think he's pretty boastful now after decades of doing this, right? I mean, he goes on stage and talks about how the American government should lie because that protects people, and how he was trained to lie, cheat,
and
steal.
He's laughing and they're, you know, the crowd's applauding. You know, yeah, it was great fun, and whatever he said there in terms of that quote, you can YouTube it. It is out there.
We played it before, I think.
Many times.
So I just think he's very disconnected from the reality that a normal person would feel if they talked about involving themselves in other people's lives and going and using force against other people. Yeah.
So right now there is about 13,000 troops in the region. Mm-hmm. Looking at about a drawdown of about down to 8,600, I should say, in the coming weeks, and then obviously further drawdown from there if they're meeting these conditions.
Yeah. So what the conditions? Do you know what they are?
Yeah. So I had them here just
I've
a
got
second
them
ago.
Here. So
okay.
They're supposed to break ties with Al Qaeda and ISIS and other terrorist groups. That's the first one. The problem with that one is that our definition of who the terrorists are can be pretty broad.
Well, it's subjective for a reason, right? So
And
that they can keep doing this.
Yeah, and so I worry, even though I think that Trump has been, I'll say, somewhat consistent in his idea that we should bring the troops home. I mean, he ran on that, and even though there's been slowdowns of his interest in it, it keeps on popping up at least a little bit. But I wonder if there's enough people within the administration, the Pompeos of the world, who can just get some intelligence that says that, oh, this new person is a terrorist or that new person is a terrorist, and cut that commitment off, because there are multiple times did he say this is all conditional on them doing what they say they're going to do.
I think there's something really interesting here, and are you aware of Esper? He is the
he's the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, he's the Secretary of Defense, and I hadn't really paid attention to this guy, and maybe for good reason. And maybe he's been kind of under the radar. But Military Times is quoting him saying, "America and its allies have made tremendous sacrifices in the pursuit of these goals, as have the people of Afghanistan." This is Esper talking still. In the transcript provided by the Pentagon, he says, quote, "We honor our brave service members who have served here, especially those who have been casualties of war. And we remember the innocent civilians lost in the struggle. The ongoing efforts to achieve a political settlement after many long years of fighting reflect a shared desire for a sovereign, unified Afghanistan at peace with itself and its neighbors." He went on thanking President Donald Trump for his leadership. Quote, "We are finally making some substantial progress toward ending our nation's longest war. Today's release of the joint declaration between the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and the United States marks a pivotal moment in the peace process. Our declaration acknowledges the deep bond shared by Afghan and U.S. forces and reflects our commitment to working together to achieve sustainable negotiated agreement that ends the war for the benefit of all Afghans. Central to this agreement are the measures to prevent the use of Afghan soil by terrorist groups or other individuals who seek to harm the United States or its allies."
So you know what I find interesting in the same comment I kind of made about Pompeo is that lots of nice, well-intentioned, and positive talk, right?
Yeah.
Except the part that I hear the most and that I would think would reverberate in the minds of the Taliban is the unified part. Why are we to force a group of people, which there are at least some separating lines, right? The borders of the country might encompass everything, but there's some separating lines.
Sure.
The same way there's a separating line between, I don't know, Metro Atlanta and rural.
No, the OT, and it's set up by the culture, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have OTP, which is outside the perimeter, and you have ITP inside the perimeter here in Atlanta. It's not a real thing. It's one of those cultural things that people kind of joke about a little bit when they're describing geographic location.
Sure, but you've obviously got some people who care about that,
sure,
and who want some kind of independence. And if you contrast that with all the other, again, well-intentioned, positive words they're using, even positive words which are forced upon you can be a little bit disturbing. So imagine the term unified when you specifically, this whole war, right?
Yeah.
This whole idea is for independence. I have a feeling that if you keep on pushing that a little too much, you might harm the peace deal you say you support.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing: is you know, as much as I want to push this and help this along, right? There's part of me that there's a large chunk of me that doesn't believe it, just because I understand what the bureaucracy wants, I understand what the industry wants, I understand that they are putting caveats in here that are almost and damn near unsustainable because they are so subjective. And one of those, when I read this, is the United States and our allies. Well, this is the problem with entangling alliances. This is what George Washington warned everybody about. Afghanistan is a sovereign nation, and there's a sovereign people, and it can do whatever the hell it wants to do. If anybody came in and told the United States what we had to do, one way or another, I don't care if it's climate change or get rid of your guns or whatever it is,
or even something positive again. Even if it's like, hey, you guys should totally just live harmoniously all together and stop. It'd be like, what
You know what?
Why? We can do that ourselves.
You know what Americans are going to do? They're going to give you the middle finger, right? Now, here's the other thing is, let's just say some bad actor, let's face it, there's evil in the world, and in a war-torn area that has been impoverished and basically enslaved by the forces that be, the aristocratic combination, if you will. Mm-hmm. Some bad actor comes in there who's a madman, who has some money, maybe related to, some princes or something like that in Saudi Arabia. I don't know, just going out on a limb here, right? It's crazy talk coming from my side of the table.
Fantasy you're talking about, Shane.
But let's just think about that just for a second. Somebody comes in there and does some harm to an ally, quote unquote. Is that a sovereign nation that we're allied with, or is that an American interest?
Well, you're talking about the same dynamic of when they say that Iran is the largest sponsor of terrorism, right?
Yeah.
They just say that Dorn, is it Shiite or Sunni?
Shiites are
the Iranians?
Yeah.
Okay, so that every Shiite terrorist, right, is backed by Iran just because they happen to share the same side of Islam. Well, that's not true. So you're right. They could do the same thing there. Be like, oh, well, I mean, they do it for even much simpler things. Be like, he looks like everybody else, so he must be a terrorist.
Crazy.
Like he's brown and has dark hair.
But you start to see, like, if you can take a step back and push away your hopes and your desires and really understand how to see this aristocratic combination, this bureaucracy, this government cabal of bureaucracy. Man, you just see these little caveats that they're slipping in here all over the place. Sit there and go, well, we can't leave yet. We're getting attacked over here, and these guys are getting attacked. And hey, there's still some evil in the region that we got to deal with. And let's leave 2,000 troops. That's not much. Let's just leave 2,000 troops there, just like we did in Syria, just like we've done in Afghan or in Iraq. Places that we have never left. We haven't left Japan. We haven't left Germany. We haven't left a whole bunch of places around the world after decades and decades and decades, and it's ridiculous.
To be fair, or devil's advocate, I guess, there wouldn't necessarily be any other way to do it. If there are some truly well-intentioned people who are part of this, which I would hope there are, I could see them not being able to argue against there being some caveats, right?
Okay,
because that would be how you make a deal. Is one person has to take some responsibility and action, the other person has to take commensurate responsibility and actions.
So for me, as a Marine, I'm going to sit here and say I disagree with you, obviously respectfully. If I'm the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense here, mm-hmm. I'm told we need to leave Afghanistan, boy, I can make that happen. I can make.
Okay,
just let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. I can make that happen, and I'm not squishing your ideas, but
no, I don't mind a conversation.
If I have the power to sit there and say, hey, listen, guys, we're going to leave in peace. Like whatever it was, this whole ridiculous 20-year boondoggle that was over here where we wasted tons and tons of lives and maimed tons and tons of bodies on both sides. We're leaving. We're gonna leave you in peace. Please keep your munitions and your attacks and everything like that to yourselves. I don't care if you're staying here and you're an American quote unquote ally or you're an American business company. Hey, I'm sorry, but you're doing business in a foreign land that's not ours. It's their sovereign nation, and you will deal with whatever consequences come. I'm going to tell you right now, you're probably kind of in a dangerous place. I'm not saying that, and listen, I'm not saying that 99.9% of Afghanis are bad people. What I'm saying is that 0.01% of people that are out there that want to kill or murder or maim or take your stuff are going to try to do that. No law is going to stop them. And if they've had their kids or their families killed by Americans and they see something of American interest that they want to take and now that's gone, hey man, you were warned. Like, we're leaving. We're not going to be here to back you up. You're not going to be able to use the American military to defend your corporate interest here. Period. That's me as the Secretary of Defense. And guys, 14 months. You better have your stuff scrubbed down, ready for retrograde, on the boats. See you later. We're out. That's it. That's how a Secretary of Defense sits there and says, we're done. There's no caveat for coming back in. And I'll tell you right now, you want to know who that pisses off? That pisses off the entire MIC, the corporate cabal of bureaucracy that's up there. And the Pompeos and the Boltons of the world and all the war hawks like Lindsey Graham and the rest of them, that puts them right in their place.
Well, I was going to say a lot of government. Most of government is predicated on things being much more complicated than they are, right? Like our tagline is peace, free markets, and liberty. I messed that one up. I messed up our own tagline.
We've only been doing, 168 shows.
But the whole government is kind of predicated on the fact that it's complicated, and we need to have a bunch of thinkers and bureaucrats pushing paperwork and trying to make a simple idea more complicated for it to work when it's really simple. And that's why the contrast between the people who believe in libertarian free market ideas is so easy to see. You've got Ron Paul on stages. It's like, we just march in, we can just march out. Like there's not much more to a plan for Pompeo or Esper to go and be like, hello, this is a great day for the American people. We're just going to march in, we're just going to march out. Peace, bye.
Yeah.
Like
take it from a guy that's retrograded a couple times, that's redeployed from a forward area. It's not difficult. You get your crap and you pack it up and you wash it down and you either put it on an aircraft or a boat and you send it back. That's it.
And if there's too much stuff, you just push it into the water.
Yeah.
We've been forced to do that before, I hear.
Yeah, I'm sure we have. I think they've lost a couple of nukes that way too.
Which I don't appreciate because waste is silly, but whatever. But I was playing devil's advocate in the sense of their paradigm of having to negotiate peace. Yes, you can just get out, and that solves a lot of problems, especially for maybe not for Afghanistan completely, right? They have problems, but it kind of settles it for us.
Yeah, sure. We're done. Peace.
Unless you're under the pretense that Pompeo is in.
Oh boy, here we go.
Man, just back and forth today. It's an ad in this.
Don't worry about it. I'll edit it out.
Video.
It's all good.
I do have a quote from Esper that I found interesting that he says later on. I thought you might read it, but I'll read it then. He says, talking about the commitments, that the commitments need to be met. He says, if the political settlement fails, if the talks fail, there is nothing that obliges the U.S. to withdraw. That's how he ended his whole comment.
Jesus,
and
are you kidding
I just
me?
thought, my first thought was, what if the whole war on terror fails? Like, isn't this the conclusion of the war on terror failing and you having to settle for something you didn't want to settle? And then I thought, what about if you're violating the law? What if you're failing to uphold the law, which is the Constitution of the United States?
God, I
What
wish
if that fails?
Congress needs to grow a damn backbone. We've said it before. We've said it a million times. Congress has the sole power of war. The AUMF, the War Powers Act, were not constitutional amendments per Article 5 of the Constitution. It's the only way to change the delegated authorities in the power of the Constitution, period. Congress needs to grow a set. They need to defund the whole damn thing and bring everybody home and tell them you're not going to war or even taking a war action, an act of war as an executive, period, without going through Congress.
You know what's funny is Trump recently had that, I guess it was an event where he recognized all these people who had been instrumental in pushing back against the impeachment. It was a very weird event. I forgot what the official like title of what was going on, but basically he just like kept on pointing out one by one from most important to least important the people that he appreciated, right? So he's like, Jim Jordan, he's a fighter. Whoa.
Oh, I saw that. Doug Collins.
He's awesome. Blah, blah, blah. Very weird. But I'm confused sometimes how Republicans don't see how Trump sees the world. Because he's very like black and white. He'll focus on something. He doesn't really care about the details that much. But it's this higher level of thinking where just going from big picture to big picture. And what does he respect? He shows it all the time. He respects people who have power and who are strong.
Yeah.
He'll go to India and say this guy is awesome because this guy just won an election in a country with over a billion people, right? And he'll recognize all the congressmen who were the loudest and most boisterous. Doesn't matter what they said, if good or bad, on TV, and he's the people that he surrounds him with. So if you don't think that if Congress went forward and said, hey, this is how they operate, unfortunately, under the subservience to the president instead of doing things on their own. Mm-hmm. But if they hear Trump saying, we need to pull out of Afghanistan, which he's said a million times, right? especially on the campaign. Less now. That's a problem.
Yeah.
But if Congress said, we heard Trump say that, we wrote a bill that says we get out right now, you don't think Trump would just be like, those are my leaders? He'd get the person who was the loudest about that. He'd say, I just said that. He's my foot soldier. Let's make this happen.
Yeah, let's go.
But instead of doing that, like, why do you think they can't see what I see so
I don't know. But Trump, I'll tell you right now, if anybody wants to send this to him, hey, you got a Marine combat vet who's running for Congress, Senate down here in Georgia right now. You want people to listen to a peace warrior, somebody who wants to get out of war? I'll lead that charge for you any day of the week. I'll lead that charge. I'll lead the charge against the Fed, and I'll lead the charge against the empire. It is time to come home, period.
You know why he in his calculation, I think he wouldn't do that? Well, first, because you're a libertarian, but I think that matters less to him. That's not the point that it matters. So this is my point. It would matter less to him.
Yeah, I think so.
But he recognizes that Congress has a lot of power. If he didn't think Congress had so much power, he would not have signed the budget bills he said were crappy budget bills. He would not have let people say, no, we need to leave a little bit in Syria. He wouldn't have done that. He recognizes it's there, and for some reason, the American people, I hate that term because it's used so much, but the American people don't see the disconnect. Trump can't really admit it because he wants to appear as the strongest.
Yeah.
But he has all these things, which he has pointed out too. He's pointed out, hey, Congress gave me a bad budget. Hey, the military-industrial complex, a term he used, which was already a surprise to a lot of us. But he can't say it directly because he can't say I'm weaker than these entities. But he alludes to it all the time.
Yeah.
And yet you've got the mainstream Republicans who won't push Congress or the military, who won't tell Congress do your job, who won't tell the military-industrial complex go jump in a lake.
Yeah, dude, get out of here.
It's a weird disconnect. If they could, Trump could do so much more good if they actually thought like Trump did, and they love Trump.
I'll tell you right now, I'd work with Trump in a heartbeat on any of those things, especially peace. And I'm not saying peace to a fault, right? Like I'm not a pacifist by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll tell you, if you've got somebody up there who's on fire, who's been there and who's done it, who can speak the language and bring people together and say, let's go, let's get our men and women home, period. Along with, Rand Paul. I'll tell you right now, I like Rand Paul a lot. But I'll tell you, there needs to be more passion and more outrage on this subject. People's lives deserve your outrage. When people's lives are being taken and flippantly used, whether they're in pursuit of quote-unquote American interests, which all we know is just doublespeak for corporate bureaucratic cabal out there, people need to be outraged by things like that. And you got to have somebody leading the charge. I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him right now because I'll tell you right now, Purdue, he's not making any noise on any of this kind of crap. None of it. He's a 56, 57% constitutional
I think 57
voter.
When I saw.
It's gross. It's controlled opposition. The guy is he's a placeholder.
I don't think it's controlled opposition. I think it's just the default of a timid man to a timid man doesn't mean a man who doesn't have aspirations, right? Like timid men who prefer the calm of despotism. That is the definition of most politicians. They want to get there and do things that are safe.
I think he wants to be president someday, honestly. I
could see a lot of politicians like that. I don't think that you actually become president if you play it too safe.
I don't either. Not in this day and age.
If not, like Lindsey Graham would be president, and Lindsey Graham's not president. Woohoo!
Thank God.
But I really think it's
wholeheartedly rejected too.
Yeah, that's nice.
I love that, man. I love that these war hawks like the McCains and now that he's dead and gone, but Lindsey Graham, I think that guy has lost all political clout whatsoever, especially when he went out and he said, hey, yeah, we're actually going to go to war even harder, and maybe we'll even go to war with Iran and things like that. That guy, man, I don't know how he keeps a Senate seat in South Carolina. I have no idea.
I mean, he's just been there for a long time, and he tons of people don't vote, and he's probably met tons of the people who do vote, and they just recognize them as being, I can't do a South Carolina voice, but just imagine House of Cards, imagine Kevin Spacey. I know he's also pretty bad guy, but imagine his voice. Lindsey Graham is a less
less evil.
A less masculine version of the House of Cards. I do have a clip from Pompeo, and I think that it's because of how much good words are coming out of Pompeo's voice. I think it's interesting to listen to.
You got it?
Yeah.
Now let's see. Let's hear that. So
Ready?
Fired up.
The audio quality is crap.
Oh well, we'll try to clean it up a little bit.
Hello.
You lied. You lied to the audience.
It's foxnews.com, which is
Vox.
No, Fox.
Oh.
I mean, same difference.
Fox.
I'm going to.
That's playing it pretty middle of the road when you say both of those things. Maybe a little more objective for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I'm having to reload it, and I'm watching the ad here.
Yeah.
So 12 seconds long.
Boy.
What else are we talking about?
Well,
today?
Today we're going to touch on the hate crime bill that went through Congress, and we're also going to touch on coronavirus because I think there's some stats out there, and I know stats and lies and all that crap, but there are some things that I want people to be a little more at ease and at peace because, man, I know we covered it just a tad, but I went and did a little bit more digging on what's really going on from real doctors who have,
epidemiology.
Yeah, thank you. Epidemiology. The one guy that I really hunkered down with did his doctoral report, I guess, on Ebola. And this was back, when Ebola was a thing. So to hear his take on this, man, I hope I can put people's minds at ease a little bit more.
Well, we will talk about that and the lynching hate bill debacle in a second after Pompeo.
Let's go.
Cause for failure. All Afghans deserve to live and prosper without fear. Sit down with the Afghan government, other Afghan political leaders, and civil society, and start the difficult conversations on a political roadmap for your country.
What the hell is happening today?
Banks' audio is all over the place.
I've got all these.
Already, I can tell Pompeo's lying because you can just hear how contrived when he has to stop and painfully read something that's been pre-written. I don't even know if I believe that Pompeo wrote these words.
I don't think he did because as he admitted, he was last minute encouraged. Trump was probably like, "Go there."
You're going to read this.
So yeah, I don't think it was necessary.
You're gonna read this, or you're gonna get fired.
You'll see but I'm not. I'd put a bet in it, but I'm not 100% sure because you will recognize Pompeo esque words at some point.
Okay.
Here we go again.
Exercise patience, even when there is frustration.
Those are not his words.
Honor the rich diversity of your country and make room for all views. Afghan governments have failed because they weren't sufficiently inclusive. The Afghan government of 2020, and indeed the Afghanistan of 2020, is not the same as in 2001. Embrace the historic progress obtained for women and girls, and build on it for the benefit of all Afghans. The future of Afghanistan ought to draw on the God-given potential of every single person. If you take these steps, if you stay the course and remain committed to negotiations with the Afghan government and other Afghan partners, we and the rest of the international community assembled here today stand ready to reciprocate. I know there will be a temptation to declare victory. But victory for Afghans will only be achieved when they can live in peace and prosper. Victory for the United States will only be achieved when Americans and our allies no longer have to fear a terrorist threat from Afghanistan. And we will do whatever it takes to protect our people. The United States will press all sides to stay focused on the goal of a peaceful, prosperous, and sovereign Afghanistan, an Afghanistan free of malign foreign interference, where all voices and communities are heard and are represented. This is the only way. This is the only way a sustainable peace can be achieved. And for all of us here, and most importantly, for the security of the American Afghan people, this must happen.
So I hope you notice, and Shane started pointing at me and smiling at me right when it transitioned. I hope you notice the very unsubtle transition from, lovey-dovey words that sometimes will make me roll my eyes because I don't believe the protagonists who are actually uttering them.
Yeah.
So about, women having equal rights in Afghanistan and peace and prosperity, slowly transitioning into these very unsubtle
veiled threats.
These very unsubtle reminders of, we will push in all ways necessary to make this happen. Don't think that victory is so easily attained. My favorite in how evil it is was the one where he talks about the peace and prosperity of the Afghan people, and then quickly goes to and the American people, because there's so many terrorists, and don't forget that we are the strongest, and that is our priority, because watch out.
And we're speaking for the whole international community.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
Oh, God, it was... hearing Pompeo read through, not his words, there was a dichotomy going on in my mind, right? There was this, good, he's uncomfortable, and he has to read this. Like, this is probably coming from the president. You're going to read this, or you're not going to be the Secretary of State any longer.
And because... if you're trying to actually get a peace deal done, and Trump loves being able to say, I got a deal done. Like that's right. That's his thing. And he's not actually that bad at it in many circumstances. It doesn't mean that it's a deal that I would necessarily like, because there's some principled stances like missing, like we don't have authority to be here in the first place.
Yeah.
And our Constitution tells us we're not supposed to. But I could see him saying, hey, to get a peace deal done, you got to say a bunch of nice things. And he's like, but what about the terrorists? Like, and Trump would probably say, swallow it. That's not how it works.
Yeah. To hear him, so for me to hear him read this brought a lot of joy, just for his suffering, right? Just because I know he didn't want to do this.
I feed off your tears.
Go ahead and bleed him out, man. Secondly, the guy is just up. Like, that veiled threat that comes at the end is, listen, if there's not peace for our people and our allies here, we've kind of already covered it. We're coming. The deal's off, right? The deal is off as soon as one of our guys is even scratched, is what it sounds like to me. Not killed. Not. If you screw with anybody in terms of American interest, even a scratch, we're coming back, and we're coming back guns blazing. That's Mike Pompeo.
Well, it's even talking about the terms of the agreement in the first place. He's like, we're going to wait till you reciprocate, and we're going to push you to reciprocate, and then we will reciprocate. Yeah. That's not how you do. That's not even how. Even if Trump thought that way, I don't think that's how he would express it. He expressed, hey, you get this, we get that. That's part of the deal. But you can see his forcefulness, which is probably like you could go down into his deep-seated fears, and he's this way because he's scared of not having control, and something in his childhood, something like that. But he doesn't express it that way at all, which I think does a lot of harm to the idea. Again, imperfect idea. I'd prefer if he was just like, we just came here, we just go home. But the transition and the fact that he slowly starts using less and less of the nice words, the peace and prosperity, and slowly starts using his usual words, which is the safety of the American people against terrorists.
So I've got 2 points that I want to make. First and foremost, where are Americans getting attacked by people from Afghanistan?
I know.
Banks Wise, you please, in the front row.
In Afghanistan.
Holy hell. So if we're not there, right? If we're not there, are we going to get attacked?
Probably not.
It seems like a really far stretch that a bunch of farmers are going to get out and go attack America.
Okay, so devil's advocate.
Yep,
for those,
go for it.
For those who would, they'd be like, what about 9/11, Shane?
Oh, boy. Well, so 9/11, there's 18 pages worth of documents that are...
28.
28? 28.
Yeah, I keep on forgetting to correct you on that in the past.
Thank you for doing that, because...
it doesn't really matter,
the fact 20. That there's a sentence... I don't care if it's one word in the skiff in Congress that prohibits the American people from knowing what really happened and who was really involved in 9/11. Saudi Arabia is implicated in the 9/11 report. It's in the skiff. The skiff is where they keep top secret documentation and hire in terms of executive or congressional privilege. Okay? I'll tell you right now, most of Congress couldn't get a top secret clearance if they wanted to.
Why not?
Because they're a bunch of murdering thugs and liars, and with ties and debt and everything else to really nefarious people. I can tell you right now, I've got one. Even I'm probably red flagged across this, I don't know, bureaucratic nightmare. I've still got one, right? Mm-hmm. I want peace for this nation. The idea that there is information down there that hasn't been released, that it was funded and set up by Saudi Arabian, not only interests, but the crown in Saudi Arabia. That's a big deal.
Those are the parts we know, that there are some people in the Saudi Arabian government who funded part of this, which was, what was it, 15 of them were Saudis?
Yeah.
16? I can't remember.
16 or something like that, yeah. And that's the thing is, you look at this and you're going, hey, it wasn't Afghanistan. It was a guy named Osama bin Laden who was a bin Ladenite, the bin Ladenite, I guess, that came out of the Wahhab sect of Islam down in Saudi Arabia. Right? Saudi Arabia is one of the largest exporters of terrorism out of the Middle East. And yet we're making billion-dollar deals with them in terms of arms and things like that. The slaughter of the Yemenis, for God's sakes, because they just can't get food and people are starving to death. Those people in the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, in terms of just Saudi Arabia, I should say the government over there, that's where we should be looking. My next point in all of this is because we're not being attacked by Afghanis, okay? That's just, it's not true. The fact that we're at this point after 20 years, what was the triggering mechanism for us to go into peace deals? That should be a question that is at the tip of everybody's mind, and nobody's asking it in the media. Nobody's asking.
What do you think it is?
I think it's Trump. I think it's Trump. There is nothing that has significantly changed in Afghanistan since 2001 in terms of the culture or the people getting more likely to quote unquote adopt quote a democracy or liberty or anything like that.
I'd agree, except for one thing. I think that tens of thousands, maybe upwards of 100,000 people dying.
Worse, that's what,
and destruction of like whole cities. Right, there's whole cities that are just leveled. I think that would change your culture to some degree.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
I think
it makes the case for what I'm saying even more.
I think those are the two things that Trump would see. He'd be like, well, death and destruction and spending lots of resources and time and energy not being useful. But besides that, I do agree.
So that's my point, is nothing has changed for the better. Nothing that America has done in Afghanistan has pushed a precipitous event for us to be like, hey, look at what we've done. Look at this amazing change in Afghanistan that's taken place because we were there and we killed so many people and we had so many of our own men and women killed and maimed and families destroyed. Like,
But Pompeo just said that we were responsible for women's rights being expanded.
Boy, man, look at Iran. Look what happened after the fall of give me his name, Mossadegh. Mm-hmm. Look at what happened in 1952, 1953 Iran, where you had a guy who was democratically elected over there, who was overthrown by the CIA in Operation Ajax, and we brought in the Shah, who left in a bloody, awful, 1979 revolution over there, and brought the mullahs in. That was because of America. And you look at what happened to women's rights in Iran after the American empire and the CIA decided to throw a coup, they still haven't recovered. The idea that this is not going to end the same damn way as it did in Iran, where women's rights are actually, evaporated into thin air because now somebody is going, oh, wait, guys, look, we got to be strong. And the only way we're going to be strong is through a warrior class, and women don't fit in here, because if we screw around and we have this opportunity now to make sure that the U.S. is gone forever. If we screw around with this, they're going to come back. And you could see somebody who's really, really a quote unquote an Afghani patriot. You could almost see somebody who's going, we have got to control the situation in Afghanistan with a strong arm no matter what. We're going to do that with a warrior class, which the Pashtun over there are a warrior class. That's where you kind of get the Taliban from, and that's why the mightiest militaries on earth have never been able to beat them. And now what are they going to do? They're going to shut down women's rights altogether in terms of voting, in terms of schooling, in terms of anything that makes them quote unquote weaker. Not because it makes them weaker, but it's perceived weakness.
Well, I think that it's a little bit, you talk about was it Adam Kokesh talks about the warrior class and how the warrior class is being misconstrued of
Sure.
what it should be. And I think it's kind of the same thing. You don't necessarily have who would be the Afghan patriots or the Iranian patriots who have the idea that they're going to put down women and so forth. You have the fact that when an outsider, and what else would an American over in the Middle East be perceived at least?
Yeah, you're an outsider.
When an outsider is also wanting to force you to do things, again, my contention, good or bad, right? Whether Pompeo says, hey, you guys should be more diverse and more inclusive, or whether he says, you guys need to stand in line and do what I say, I think it has the same kind of vitriolic reaction from people who like to be independent. If you tell me, Banks, you're allowed to leave this house after the podcast, I might just stay here and be like, screw
what
you,
are you going to do?
But I think it's that you've got like the devil they know,
right,
who is going to push off the bigger invader, the outsider, who they don't even understand because they're an outsider, right? When you don't understand somebody, you
why they here,
you can tend to fear them even more.
Yeah,
I think it misconstrues and puts a light on this other strong arm and says, hey, those are the strong people, and then people kind of justify, well, the strong people are protecting us, and then it goes from there. Sure. I don't think it's like a bottom up, like where we're going to create this this unequal society. I think it's a top down.
I agree.
And that's how you see people like the
and history's been
the Iranian guy who took over after the Shah is the
Ayatollah Sistani.
Yes.
Not Sistani. Ayatollah Khomeini.
Khomeini.
Yeah. Sistani's Iraq. And that's what I wanted to get at is that there is no precipitous event here at all. There's nothing. That's how you know, and through the Afghanistan papers that were released right before the end of the last year, I believe, that this whole boondoggle in Afghanistan, what a catastrophic, disastrous waste of lives and treasure and resources, and this is an admission of that. And they still don't want to leave. This is, I guarantee it, man. This is being driven by Trump, and I'm going to give him all the credit in the world in terms of trying to fulfill this promise, man. Keep working, man. Keep pushing, keep hounding, keep sending Pompeo out to read things that he doesn't want to read, because I absolutely love it.
Well, I think that's a good wrap.
Me too.
Longest war in American history, 19 years.
Ugh.
14 months to get this through as they take out 5,000 Americans and leave 8,000. I hope it goes well.
Yep.
I think that the biggest moment when this could go badly is right after Trump is reelected. This is me guessing that Trump is reelected.
Yep.
Because at that point, Trump will potentially have slightly less incentive to make this happen.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be a very good campaign thing. I don't think he's doing it just for the campaign reason. But as soon as we end this war, we'll see. Like the Iraq War is not that far behind at surpassing it as the longest war. Like if this war ended today, unless the Iraq War, which some people say is ended, I don't go with that definition.
Hey, you still got boots on the ground there. You've still got $1 billion facility down in Baghdad. It ain't over, man.
Yeah. I think it's a 20. Is it $1 billion? It is $1 billion one.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about the acreage, which is 100 and something acres.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
But as soon as this war ends, again, I don't know if it's going to happen. The Iraq War only has 2 or 3 years to catch up and become the new longest war.
Yeah, you look at the green zone and BIOP and all that over there. I know you've never been there, and so I'll tell you right now, when you go through a new country, right, and you begin to see the mud huts and things like that with, a lot of the mud huts had satellite dishes, even back in the early part of 2000 when we were over there, and you finally get up to Baghdad. the you want to talk about, the separation in terms of rich and poor. God, it screams at anybody who's ever seen it. Well, let me tell you what doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. Whatever this is over here, where you've got a leader who could just kill people willy nilly in a strong arm. The government executive is the executive of and the legislative and the judicial all at the same time. Complete despotism.
What's funny is you mentioned the satellites, and that just makes me happy because I'm like, okay, so what is the solution if all those things don't work? Well, one part of the solution is apparently the fact that satellites are so cheap because even people who live in mud huts can have them.
That's right.
It's the same thing makes me happy. Did you know that the largest concentration of microtransactions done through mobile phones is in Africa?
What?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is the size of about 3 continents of the United States. You know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, geographically speaking, square mileage, the continent of Africa is about 3 times as large as the continental United States.
That's not what my map shows me. I tell you.
You want to get into the
I do.
Either the hate speech or the corona.
Let's do the corona and let's put like a time limit on
All
it.
right, so corona.
And I wanted to talk about the coronavirus. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just think that
maybe we'll get into a little bit of the economic side of this, just a bit. But I want people to first and foremost. You have that one clip by Donald Trump Jr. Do you still have that up and ready to go?
I do. It play.
You let me know when you got it ready.
Okay, I will.
So I'm going to go back in history a little ways. Back in the turn of the 2000 era, you guys may have heard about swine flu back in the day. Okay, there's something that happens out there in terms of the establishment, the cabal, the propaganda machines that support them. And what they do is they hype things up, because what happens if you hype things up? When you hype things up, what you're doing is you are driving people in terms of fear to do things. One of those things is to consume social media. Social media is a great platform where people like to sell things and get advertisements out and have people, looking at their phones, right? Like that. We
kind of do it on our own. I pick up my phone sometimes just for no good reason. Then it makes me feel good. I don't know why.
$1 trillion industry, but if you can focus and force people to a very specific subject, what can you do? Now you can do even more targeting, and what you can do is take the larger type corporations, and you can buy ad space and wherever these people are talking about this kind of thing. It also gets people to go out and possibly buy things that they think are in demand, like masks and other nonsense out there. First and foremost, I want you guys to keep a level head during this entire thing, right? I am not here to tell you one way or another how to think. I am going to give you some figures and put things hopefully in a better perspective from an epidemiologist. Thank you, Brain, for pulling that one out. An epidemiologist. So if you'll bear with me here. So the swine flu how much did we hear? It's 24/7 news. A lot. We heard so much.
That's kind of how our news kind of works.
It
hypes. I think that there's a part of, so you can sell ads and you can propagandize people, but it has to be based on some intrinsic need.
Sure.
And so people worrying, like that is something intrinsic that it's easy to tap into.
But
and there's a natural part to that.
When we have these quote unquote new disease outbreaks that are sensationalized by the establishment and the media, and I'll say it's sensationalized because of this statistic: the swine flu, for as much media coverage as it got. Do you know what the mortality rate was with the swine flu?
I don't think they advertise the mortality rate as that big, but I don't know. But I'm going to guess
0.03%. That was for the swine flu. Okay, so Ebola also came out, and it was mostly Africa. They got it contained. Everything was fine. There was one case where somebody from an organization that was over there came back. I think it was into like Houston, Texas, or something like that, and the one person did die.
That was back in like the mid '90s, right?
No, it was definitely past the turn of the century for sure.
I thought it was in the mid '90s.
There was an Ebola breakout out in the '90s too, but they also took care of that one. Okay, so let's get into Corona. Corona is actually just another version of SARS. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. There's so much information out there that what I consider for myself unimportant, I just ignore it.
SARS was a 2003 scare, quote unquote scare, and the reason why the people in China decided to name it something different is because they didn't want to alarm people, right? That's funny. That's actually why they didn't name it SARS 2, right?
I actually think Budweiser paid them. No, they're. People are they took a poll. People are 40% less likely who used to buy Corona beer to drink Corona beer. We should have a Corona beer on here right now.
I'm actually I would. That's something I would challenge. So anyway, Corona is the SARS of 2020, I guess, and SARS was back in 2003. In the outbreak of SARS, do you know how many people were affected?
Worldwide?
Yep.
No, I don't know.
8,000. That's a drop in the bucket, okay? So anyway, the fact that you think that you may get this, okay? Let's put some things into perspective. You are more likely to get stomped to death by a horse than you are to get corona. Okay? That is a weird statistic, right? Because it doesn't happen very often to anybody.
Okay,
I'm going to keep going.
I understand, but I also take multivitamins some mornings, and the statistical importance of me taking a multivitamin is very low. We all do things with statistical, the statistical probability of that being useful being very low. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily unimportant, though, to be aware of.
Is there the allocation of resources, the fear mongering, and everything else that's going on, the politicization of this whole thing? If you are between 10 years old and 60 years old, you have a 99.8% chance of surviving, even if contracted the coronavirus. That's pretty amazing. Has anybody in mainstream media even thought about saying that to anybody?
One person did. Trump, if you saw the
I don't
press
listen
release,
to him, man.
He actually started out, and some people gasped, but he's going to go into conspiracy. And he actually started out by saying, "Hey, here's the flu. Here's how many people the flu kills, and it kills people." I don't think he used this words, but he kills outliers, meaning people who already have
weakened immune systems, and the elderly and the very young and sickly. Mm-hmm. Sure, I compromised immune systems. So your chance of contraction of coronavirus is 0.0. I should say point. Let me start over. 0.0000004%. Okay, the chance that you will die if contracted by the coronavirus, and this was released yesterday by an epidemiologist, is 0.0000008%. Okay, you are 1,704 times more likely to die falling out of your bed.
So some people, I think, would look at the numbers we see in China. What are the numbers? It says 80,000 cases and 2,000 deaths. I pull that out of my head randomly, and they would say, well, that's not the mathematical calculation. They'd say it looks like it's more like. I've heard that the mortality rate is 2%. So why would the chance of dying and the mortality rate be different? I think that the problem there might be the statistics that Twain talks about.
Yeah.
Is you can make things look like whatever you want to look. Are they taking the whole population and how many people have died? Then that's a different chance of dying than those who contract it. Of course, if you take the whole population of the world and say that your chance of contracting is this much, and then you base the mortality rate and divide it by that, you're going to get a really, really, really small number.
Different number, yeah.
At this point, I don't think it's.
But this is the way an epidemiologist who is non-political in everything that he does has measured this.
I'm just saying I don't think it's unreasonable for somebody to say I understand that the chance of contracting it is really, really, really small.
Yeah.
And from my opinion, if it's that small, I'm kind of less careful. Right, but I don't think that it's unreasonable for somebody to say, okay, it's a small chance, and whether I take that seriously or not, because I'm more hypochondriac than other people, whatever. And then the number they use to talk about how serious that is not the 0.0000 chance of dying, because that's based on getting it as well, which is also small. It's based on if you get it, this is a chance of dying. I don't think it's unreasonable to assess that instead of the very, very, very small chance of both things happening, right? Contracting and dying.
Sure.
Which makes for a number that is laughable. Instead of 2% mortality rate for something, I think is something to take into consideration, even if we look at the flu, and the flu also has a mortality rate that is significant.
So I like this. I like the way this guy did it, because first and foremost, he's not political. Secondly, he is an epidemiologist. And so what he's doing is basically giving you the odds as an individual out there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I think, as an individual who's out here, I want to know, how is this affecting basically the average person? The average person who has a healthy immune system. You may contract it, you may never even know it as a healthy person, or it may be so minuscule, like the swine flu. Most people, there was so many people in the, I think, over the billion mark that contracted swine flu that didn't even really know that they were sick.
My dad and I got the swine flu.
Yeah, see, and you're here. You're healthy for the most part. I mean,
I died for 5 days.
You died once.
For 5 days, I died.
But I caution people against the fear and the sensationalism. And one place that I look to personally to know if this is being sensationalized is to the Democrats, because they love to do this. I know Republicans do it with different things, but I know the Democrats do this all the time. And I also know that the propaganda machines that are out there also do this. And so when I've got both of these camps who are firing off the fear mongering at such a ridiculous level that my spidey sense starts to tingle, man. You get my little Peter tingle, and I just go, what on earth is, what is going on where these guys are doing this? And what I see is what I said last time: Trump just avoided catastrophe. Okay. You have a clip over there from Donald Trump Jr., and I think this would be probably a pretty good time to play it.
I can play it.
Yeah, go for it.
It's loading.
Boy, you got some issues.
This is Huffington Post.
For them to try to take a pandemic and seemingly hope that it comes here and kills millions of people so that they could end Donald Trump's streak of winning is a new level of sickness.
All right. So here, let's just, I don't want to be that dramatic, okay? I don't want to be that dramatic. But the damn Democrats have opened themselves up for this kind of stuff. I mean, when you've got people like Bill Maher or however you say his damn name, saying, bring on the recession, and, things like that, so that they can cripple this guy in terms of his economic, quote unquote, success, because I'm not one of those people that sits there and go, oh, yeah, things are just great in the economy. Things are BS in the economy right now. Most people just don't understand Austrian economics to the degree that I think people in the Liberty crowd do. And they don't see what it is. They see unemployment's low. They see, people in brown and black communities have jobs and things. The problem is and I don't know if I want to get too far into the economic side of this, is people are leveraged to death right now. This whole economy is super leveraged.
That's actually one of the points in an article I've got pulled up here, where they're talking about specifically, and I'm just laughing when I saw the headline. I laughed.
Yeah,
it said that all this debt that is built up would make something like this coronavirus effect on the market. So for those who don't know, this has been the largest decrease in stock market value since the Great Recession, which was 2008. And it's the fourth largest plunge in the stock market in a century. It rivals the .com bust, which was in 2000, I guess, 1999 to 2000. It rivals almost when Hitler invaded France.
I got some numbers for you too.
Go ahead.
One of the reasons this is happening is because one of the main manufacturing ports over in China, Chengdu, they are on mandatory leave right now. 45 out of the 50 major shipping and manufacturing companies in Chengdu, China, is closed.
So they're saying that even the I don't know, counties or regions or whatever they call them, departments, Most of those who are not on official lockdown, they're still under capacity, and the ones that are working at best capacity are working at 86.5%.
Yeah.
And they're saying that the ones that are in complete lockdown, if they get to 20 or 40% in the near future, because right now they're completely shut down, would be like high hopes.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's pretty crazy.
So what they're saying is this year alone, the coronavirus, as people are worried and staying home or being forced home, whatever it is, will have a $300 billion effect on the world economy.
That's it, because the aggregate of all the world stock markets over the past week, we've lost $5 trillion.
Wow. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
1 week too.
Yeah.
Especially when you got quantitative easing going on. And that's the other thing. There are people out there going, hey, can the Fed stop this? I'll tell you right now, it looks like a perfect storm to me, man. And that's why I kind of get into this idea right now where there's a correction coming. I mean, we've said that there's a correction coming for, I don't know, since before 2008.
Well, this is a weird moment actually for those two things to happen kind of at the same time. There's been like this looming correction for a while.
Is it weird?
Well, you've got this looming correction. We're all like, hey, markets are inflated because of low rates.
Yeah.
And then you've got the coronavirus, which causes a panic. And so in some ways, this is a correction, and corrections are not necessarily bad, right? If things are mispriced. But I think, unfortunately, that these two are, instead of just correcting what should have been corrected, I think they're going to add to each other. But the Fed did come out, which is pretty rare for the Fed to react fast. They usually take a long time and let people like hypothesize of what's going to happen. The Fed did come out and say that they would act as appropriate to support the economy. You know what that means in Fed words? They're going to lower interest rates.
They're going to keep lowering interest rates. They're going to keep digitizing money out of thin air. Oh, boy. I'm sure it'll just get better and better and better. We are looking at listen, people.
The idea is to put it down 0.5, so 0.5%.
Wow.
Which is a lot.
That's a ton, man.
They would do this at their March meeting, so soon.
Well, if you're going out and trying to buy a house, maybe now's the time. Get in while the interest rates are low or non-existent, one way or another. So with everything we've said, I don't doubt Democrats are politicizing the hell out of this while saying Trump's politicizing the hell out of this. He's not taking it seriously enough. I think the one thing that obviously could ruin him is the economy. And right now, I've got a clip over here from, oh boy, I think it's, old Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. Last week, I think she was on with Don Lemon.
Is that where she's talking about taking the border wall money?
Let's her do it in her own words.
I'm going to be introducing a plan tomorrow to take every dime that the president is now spending on his racist wall at our southern border and divert it to work on the coronavirus.
Wow. 20.
That's just a talking point because people like it. She doesn't care.
Yeah, she's which makes it even worse. It makes it even worse. She doesn't care, and yet she's sitting out there, driveling to the dumb masses, as Neil Bortz used to say. This is fear-mongering. This is, I'm going to take $20 billion, and I'm going to put it towards something that you have about this much chance of in terms of infection or even death.
This is how...
it's terrible.
This is how we get... centaurs, okay? You just take one thing that has nothing to do with another thing, you put them together. This is the coronavirus border wall issue. It makes no sense to put them together, except if you're looking at this political landscape. And this is why Bernie Sanders is more popular and is winning compared to Elizabeth Warren, because as much you might not like him, he actually mostly is talking about ideas. Wrong ideas, fine, but ideas instead of political, weaponized kind of narratives.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, man, the Democrats have put themselves in such a position, especially after the last 3 years, that when I see all this, I know what they're doing. They're using it politically to try to gain the Oval Office. Coronis is going to dissolve into a non-threat, just like Ebola did, just like SARS, just like swine flu, just like every other damn thing that's out there that's probably not cancer, which really kills the shit out of people. Boy, 111, Shane, write that down.
So do you think it's stupid or ill-informed that anybody's, because here we're talking about pandemic and at least a possibility of pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I think of pandemic, I think of flu. I think of cancer. I think of things that really, no kidding, take tons and tons of lives every year that,
But those haven't become pandemics. Pandemics, what's the definition of pandemics? Let's see, actually, before I actually...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what is the threshold of a pandemic, right? What is the threshold?
I am going to assume, we're going to get it here, that a pandemic has to do with the speed of transmission and not being able to contain it.
Yeah, I imagine there's got to be some sort of...
So pandemic means an outbreak of a pandemic disease, pandemic prevalent over a whole country or the world. Man, those are some crappy definitions. Let me find something that's more...
So that's
prevalent throughout an entire country, continent, or the whole world. Epidemic over a large area.
So this is the question.
So
right?
you could actually say cancer is a pandemic, I guess.
Yeah.
I thought it had something to do with transmission and ease of transmission.
No, flu is then also a pandemic. I mean, it's one of those things where you look at this and you go, is this a species killer? Because it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it.
Well, that's not the definition of pandemic, to be fair.
But I think that's what. When I look at this and I see the hype and I see the people who are preparing and the people who are scared for their kids and their wives and their husbands and their grandparents, when I see that, I had a conversation last night, and I'll tell you right now, one of my family members is really scared about this, man, and like I hope she hears this part of the show. This is one of those things. This is not a species killer. It's not even going to be close to a species killer. As we said, if you're between 10 and 60, you've got a 99.98% chance of, even if you do contract it, of living through it. So we're not talking like pandemic, epidemic, where anybody and everybody dies like the Black Plague back in the day. We're not talking about smallpox. We're not talking about anything on those levels at all. We are talking about a virus very akin to coronas, and by the way, to
SARS, you mean?
Yeah, to SARS that are actually, and I think Glenn Beck reported this yesterday, is that Israel and the United States are saying they are very close to a vaccine for coronas.
Well, Israel said I think 8
Couple
or 10
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah.
And the United States, that was during the press conference they had, said it would take 6 months to test, and then I think total like 14 months.
Thanks to the bureaucracy. However, there's already human testing going on.
Well, the ones, man, you're making me defend the government here.
I know. And go ahead.
Go
ahead, you statist.
Everybody is laughing because they know that's not true. But the way that the doctor was explaining it, I think he worked for the CDC or something like that.
Yeah.
Was not really in necessary terms of the FDA and the approval process.
Yeah.
Kind of more of like, this is the scientific correct way of doing things. Some of it might be because he just follows what the FDA process is, but it didn't seem unreasonable to me. He's like, hey, we do this. These are the animals. This is when we'll have this synthesized. This is where we can start the low level test on humans. And then we need like another 6 months to see if there are longer term, like unintended consequences. So most of it seemed reasonable to me. And he said like over a year out for that process.
Huh.
Which I looked a little bit more about the definition of pandemic. There is it is about an epidemic, and an epidemic is talking about a rapid spread of infectious disease. So it does need to be rapid. I am a little bit more okay with the sensationalism.
Sensationalism.
Thank you.
You got it.
Boy, hard word.
Yeah.
that certain people are doing, like who's the radio host who just got the Freedom Award?
Oh, Rush Limbaugh.
Rush Limbaugh was. He said that it was probably like put forth by a Democrat in a secret lab to do it's
it's gross.
Okay, but I actually don't mind people being
flippant.
not flippant, no, just worried about it, and those who want to follow that worry and be extra cautious, like
Be cautious, people.
I don't have healthcare.
Hey, listen.
But some people have healthcare. I don't judge those who are buying healthcare at 20 when I doubt that they need it.
Don't eat tons of sugar. Have good gut health. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Okay, stay away from sick people. And if you're going to be around the young, like the infant age group, or I don't know, even through like early childhood, or you got elderly people around you that you're dealing with, use precaution. That's for flu. That's for everything.
You mentioned not eating sugar. I know why, but I've actually never heard that one. Because now we've gotten people on TV who are like, wash your hands. And I forget who made a comment. Was it Dave Smith or something like? Who's like, this is proof that Americans are stupid. We are being told we need to wash our hands.
Listen, I think it's and somebody will correct me out there in the nutrition. Your gut health is one of the most important things in terms of your overall health. Like if you're destroying your gut with like senseless antibiotics and crap like that, or I mean, that kind of stuff, it ruins your immune system, man. And so like gut health, sugar is one of those things that destroys gut health. It destroys your overall health, because what you're doing is now you can't metabolize sugar, the right way. You get the ups and the downs, and what you need is that nice level line in terms of staying in a nice, blood sugar zone. And when your body is constant like that and it achieves that homeostasis, that's where your system is able to fight things more. That's why things like zinc and magnesium are great in terms of seasons like this where people are getting sick. The vitamin C and things like that. Those are things you probably should look at. I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I'm not even saying I'm a health, a qualified health professional. But I'll tell you right now, in my own life, I use a lot of this natural stuff in terms of boosting my immune system. And I am around people from all over the world all the time in tubes that are flying from continent to continent. And I'll tell you right now, I don't remember the last time I was really sick.
So, again, I don't mind people who take it more seriously.
Yeah.
And if that's their mindset and that makes it easier for them to sleep at night, I think some of it may make it harder for them to sleep at night. Then that's fine. If people want to shake feet instead of shaking hands, have seen the videos?
Feel gross. It's all gross.
It's these Asian people. It's not gross. They just tap their shoes basically instead of even doing a fist bump.
They come together and they click shoes?
Yeah. There's this one guy who gets out of a van and he goes by like 5 or 6 people.
I love it. Bam, bam.
It looks really cool, actually.
That's cool.
So if they want to do that, I don't think it harms anything. Be extra cautious if you want to.
I'm that and fist bumps, man. I'm all for you.
And if you're like me and Shane, I'm a little bit more cautious than Shane, because Shane is just
give me the germs.
For those not watching, he's licking his hand or pretending to. But for those of us like us who think it's not as crazy and scary, there's some cheap flights out there.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now.
I just had a friend get a round trip ticket to Japan for $400.
Let's do it. Let's go. Let's travel the world. Now's the time to do it. Don't tell anybody.
There's a bunch of businesses that have their value has gone down, and they're talking about having to contract and fire people and so forth. But there are actually some other businesses who are like, we're going to be ready when the panic stops.
Right.
Apparently, casinos are ready to just take a bunch of people back in because they think that that's going to be something that people are going to flock to after being cooped up for so long.
I couldn't gamble. I got to get back to gambling right now. That's so funny, man.
Well, they might. Actually,
we've sanitized all our machines. We've been going around Lysoling all the buttons and everything. I'll tell you what.
The article didn't say it, but maybe there's like a psychologist behind it. Like, okay, they thought they took a gamble on the coronavirus and they won, so now they think they're on a winning streak.
Have you ever been in Vegas?
I have not.
Oh God,
I've never been in a casino. I've never gambled besides poker, which I don't consider gambling.
Ladies and gents, please don't take offense to this. Casinos are one of the most god-awful, dirty places I've ever been. Like they're like you're walking through smoke, and I don't mean to be offensive. I hate smoke, man. I can't stand breathing in smoke, and I definitely hate just being in it. But there are times in my industry where I've got to walk through this kind of stuff, and it sucks. And who I see in casinos, especially during daylight hours, man. It's old people. It's people that probably not made a lot of great decisions with their life. They're camped out. They're looking for like that special machine that's going to change their life forever. And they're touching their face. They're smoking. They're drinking. They're dropping dirty money into dirty machines and then touching dirty machines. And now they're dirty. And like, no, thank you. Hell no. This, I definitely see the casinos taking a hit. But here's the other thing is, these people, like I mentioned, don't make the best life decisions. So are they going to stop gambling because of some silly coronavirus? Probably not.
Well,
it'd be a great test
in
case.
places where all the casinos are shut down, they will. So Macau, which is the gambling capital of the freaking world.
Macau, where's that at?
It's in China.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I thought this article talked about it just being part of China. I thought it was kind of somewhat independent, but China had asked them to shut down for 2 weeks completely.
Independent in China. That's
yeah,
I'm the eternal optimist.
It's got a Hong Kong-esque situation, I think.
Yeah, right on.
Oh
man,
that's what kind of happened in these places around China, because you had capitalism. They didn't really want that to be part of Chinese stuff, so it had to be like, hey, you go over there and be an exception,
sure,
where they allow gambling and all that kind of stuff.
Unbelievable, man. Oh well, should we get into maybe our last and final subject for the day?
Yeah. So my question to you is, why do you hate people so much?
Why the hateness?
So we're talking about the lynching bill, and if you just go and put lynching bill,
oh man,
and maybe put leftist progressive thoughts on lynching bill, you'll see these headlines which would make you think that they're like, finally we have an anti-lynching bill. Finally they've made lynching illegal.
From Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman out of the
Minnesota.
Great state of Minnesota. Quote, the fact that we are still trying to make lynching illegal as the federal law is telling of where we are in our country.
Shane, since when has lynching been illegal?
Boy, I don't know. I thought lynching, let's just like carry the two, drop the one, dotted line. Oh yeah, murder. Murder is illegal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is what your Congress is doing right now. We're $23 trillion in debt. And these jackasses, not to mention, we've been at war for 2 decades. We spent countless lives, killed millions and millions of people. We've got displacement. We've got, just this broken down bureaucratic nightmare here in the United States. And what are we talking about in Congress? We're talking about hate crimes. We're talking about anti-lynching bills that make it, I don't know, illegal to kill people because murder doesn't fall into the same category. I don't know people that murder people out of love. I don't know people that commit crimes of rape and assault and coercion and assault or robbery and property damage out of love. Like, there's no...
Are you saying that all crimes are hate crimes?
Ah, man, I just think that crime is crime. And every person who commits a crime in that defined sense is a criminal. And whether they're dispassionate, or they're crazy, or they have needs of their own that they can't meet through their daily lives, like, I don't know. But that's what I'm saying is crime is probably individually motivated, and the fact that there may be some hate, there may be some not hate, murder's murder, assault's assault, rape, coercion, that's all the same thing. Those are illegal in this country. And the fact that we're wasting the time in Congress and the resources when there are real damn problems out there that we need to be addressing is unbelievable to me. The fact that there's an uproar again to stage the scene to say these guys over here are monsters because they don't agree with what we're doing. They don't think that we should be wasting our time doing this kind of stuff, or they hate people of color and they're racist, right? I mean, like, how lazy an argument is. I mean, get that JV crap out of here. Your Nazism, your racism, your homophobicness, all this crap these days, it's falling on deaf ears and people are sick of it.
What's funny is when you understand the concept that all people actually are created equal, and you start from that basis, you tend to say the same thing. So you said a crime is a crime. Thomas Massey said a crime is a crime. I wrote in my anti-hate crime legislation.
Tell Thomas I don't believe in IP, so he can have that one.
I wrote in a resolution. I wrote haha. The same thing. A crime is a crime. Most of the arguments, or the only arguments, are people are actually equal, and if you apply that principle consistently, you get to the fact that whatever happens to one person, if the same thing happens to another person, the same analysis of it should be done. And then there's another interesting defense, which I think is correct, that you haven't gone to, and I'm surprised, is that it's actually not constitutional for the federal government to have anything that's even looks like a hate crime, because that's supposed to be left to the states. There's only certain crimes that are codified in federal law.
Like, and actually, I'm not a state worshiper, so
I'm not even sure that at the federal level, besides things that are connected to the federal government, like maybe the murder of, I don't know, a president because he's the head of the federal government, but I'm not even sure that murder that happens in states has anything to do with the federal government. The states are supposed to have that. So that's been the arguments from some of the people who have voted against this bill.
I'll tell you right now, there are people out there who are up in arms about the 4 members of Congress who didn't. David Levitt, I don't even know who this blue check mark is. There are 4 members of Congress who voted against making lynching a federal crime. The racist mother are Justin Amash, Thomas Massey, Lee Gomer, and Ted Yoho. I'm telling you right now, I know at least one of these guys personally, and he doesn't have a racist bone in his body, man. Like, are you kidding me? Like, to call especially Thomas Massey, I mean, are you joking? The guy's the nicest guy in the world, and it would gladly give his shirt off of his back to anybody, I think, that was really, really in need. What a
and
joke.
He starts off his explanation saying the Constitution specifies only a handful of federal crimes and leaves the rest to individual states to prosecute. In addition, the bill expands current federal hate crime laws. A crime is a crime, and all victims deserve equal justice. Adding enhanced penalties for hate tends to endanger other liberties, such as freedom of speech.
That's right.
How more SJW could you get than all victims deserve equal justice? I thought we were supposed to be all equal.
Yeah.
Like what? How does a SJW progressive who's saying that this is racist read that and not stop and ponder for a second on, well, hold on, if I thought equality was like our number one mantra here.
Yeah.
Like I
don't be an NPC.
Understand.
Sharon Stone. Oh, I don't even know why she's relevant, but Reason is reporting her.
She did something with her legs, apparently.
Yeah, apparently wasn't back in the day. Had to do with like beaver abuse or something. It was 4 people voted against the anti-lynching bill, all in capital. She's screaming this on Twitter. 4. She spells it out, and then she puts the number 4. 4 again.
What? I'm confused.
4 people in power.
Okay. I get it.
In our American government still vote for lynching. We need term limits. Sharon Stone, go back to your beaver abuse. The idea that these people, right, we're anti-lynching, stop hate crimes, but hate the right out of these you know what I mean? Like, hate these guys, call them, go assault them, go to their farms, go to, wherever they are and attack these guys because they don't agree with your silly, stupid law that's already a law that I'm going to point out because of, the fabulous Justin Amash out there went and did his homework as per usual before he votes and then told people why he was voting the way he was voting. Justin Amash gets a bad rap. I don't agree with him on why necessarily he wanted to impeach Trump this time. Like, war crimes, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you right now, Justin Amash, that guy is an A constitutional voter. And A constitutional voters, I'll tell you right now, people, if that's who you are against, that's who you are throwing up on the cross to sacrifice for a politician who rarely, if ever, actually cites the Constitution, you might want to do a little introspection here, because a country that's predicated on a document that is not arbitrary, if you can be arbitrary with a government, that arbitrary government can take your life and your liberty and your freedom and your property in a blink of an eye. This guy fights against that every day. Justin Amash says on Twitter, if you're saying to yourself, I can't believe Congress is only now outlawing lynching, there's a good reason you can't believe it. It's not true. To be clear, the bill does not make lynching a new federal hate crime. Murdering someone on account of their race or conspiring to do so is not legal under federal law. It's already a federal crime, and it's already a hate crime. He goes on, and H.R. 35. H.R. 35 criminalizes conspiracy to violate various federal crime laws, including many laws that are unrelated to lynching, but it's already illegal to conspire to commit any federal crime, so that the acts this bill covers are already criminal. The bill's main effect is to make these conspiracies punishable to the same extent or greater as the underlying crimes, some of which are punishable by death. We should also abolish the death penalty, not expand it into more crimes. Beautiful.
I haven't even read the bill, but the fact that he's explained that way probably means that there's mandatory minimums and maximums, and that in of itself is a perversion of the judicial system. And there's a very interesting way. So it's problematic. It's what has people in jail for possession of marijuana for the rest of their lives. And there's an easy way to get everybody on board and tell them, hey, we shouldn't, like, individual cases. That's why we have a legal system, is to assess individual cases. You could even defend the principle of there being hate crimes by saying, hey, we have a legal system. If somebody seems that thinks that it was particularly egregious, they can just give the person more time.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, man.
You've got Ted Yoho, who says he'll continue to condemn the horrific act of lynching. I think he's playing into their argument by saying that, because he should. I think Amash did a much better job being like, it's illegal, you dumb people.
Yeah, like, look, I'm laying the case out for you. It's a slam dunk. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And by the way, giant waste of time and resources here in Congress when we've got a lot bigger problems. I thank you to the four that sit there and point out the absolute ridiculously of this government. It's God, boy, I get worked up, Banksy. We're gonna have to chill out. We're coming up on the 1:30 mark here
already.
Oh yeah, buddy.
So I do want to read a little bit more of the different approaches they took to this bill, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind. Go for it.
So this bill today is an overreach of the federal government and encroaches on the principles of federalism, the retiring lawmaker, that's Ted Yoho, said. Hate crimes fall under the jurisdiction of states, which has led to 46 states producing various hate crime statutes. In my home state of Florida, these crimes are already under state government jurisdiction and are punishable by death. I would much rather, if someone is lynched in Texas, they be subject under Texas law to the death penalty. He said. This is Louis Gohmert now. And even within this bill, of these four people voting against it, you've got people like Justin Amash who are talking about the fact that hate crimes don't exist. Well, some have passed, but they shouldn't exist. Well, he's saying, actually, I'm sorry, that's Thomas Massey saying that they shouldn't exist in the first place. Mm-hmm. You've got Justin Amash saying that the death penalty should be repealed. And then on the other side, you've got Yoho and Gohmert who are like, oh, well, these things are already at the state, and we should kill them there. So it's funny that within the people who are willing to vote no, which is a big thing. I'll give credit to Yoho and Gohmert for being willing to be called racist and Nazis and so forth, right? There's still a divide where we divide out Amash and Massey together, which is no surprise to those who are listening.
And I want to go even a step further in defending Amash and Massey. Okay, Amash and Massey, I believe, are both anti-death penalty, and I'll step back a little bit from Thomas Massey because I don't know for sure. I imagine
I'll find out
a guy as smart as he is probably anti-death penalty. Now, overwhelmingly, in terms of people who are in jail and prison and who are sitting on death row, I don't like putting people in boxes, but I'll tell you right now, I guarantee you most of them in terms of percentages wise of the population of the U.S. are overwhelmingly people with a little bit of pigment in their skin, Banksy. Guarantee you. And so for these guys to sit back and say, especially Amash, sit there and say, hey, listen, I think we should have also abolished the death penalty. It sounds pretty racist to me. Does it sound pretty racist to you?
Sounds like the opposite.
It sounds like the opposite. It sounds like the guy doesn't want the criminal justice system or the government in general to have the power to take the lives of the citizens in this country, especially when we have such draconian drug laws that lock nonviolent people up while engaging in peaceful trade and use of things like cannabis. It's absolutely it's 180 degrees from what these people are doing, and I can't believe people like, I don't know. Well, I can't believe Sharon Stone, but I mean, congresswomen and men out there that are going out there and trying to besmirch these guys. And that's the thing is, you look at who Massey and who Amash and these guys are getting primaried by this election season. Primaried by their own party. These guys are the most staunch constitutionalists there are in Congress, and both parties want them gone. If anything, people, you should be taking another look at them and saying, why does the duopoly and this establishment bureaucratic cabal want these two out of everybody not here anymore?
So just to confirm that Thomas Massey is very against the death penalty. He was at an event with the Concerned Conservatives against the death penalty, and he voted against a bill, which I'm sure he was like, ugh, they named these bills. I hate these people in the propaganda.
Yeah.
The bill is named the Thin Blue Line Act, and it was to allow the death penalty for murder or attempted murder of a law enforcement officer.
Huh.
So I'm pretty sure if he took the cojones to vote against that bill, that he is very opposed to the death penalty.
Let's see what we got here. Partisan. Episode 79 of The Rebellion. If you want to know why we are as adamant as we are about the not having the government have death penalties, have the delegated authority to take the lives of its citizens, I hope you'll go listen to episode number 79, Hannah Cox. Boy,
the amazing Hannah Cox.
The amazing Hannah Cox. I'll tell you right now, like I say every time before I introduce people to Hannah, go warm up your brain. go have a little extra coffee, and make sure that you are ready to digest some information on what we used to call the cyclic rate in the Marine Corps. The cyclic rate is as fast as you can shoot a weapon system for a minute, right? Mm-hmm. That your brain needs a tune-up.
There's only a few episodes of the podcast that I listen to, and there's even fewer that I listen to multiple times, and it's that one that I listen to multiple times and Scott Horton's episode. Yeah,
and those two, I'll tell you right now, you're dealing with different types of minds,
man. You should get them in the same room.
Oh, God. It'd be like watching, did you ever see the Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro on,
on Dave Rubin's?
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, man.
It was very enjoyable. I enjoyed it.
I'm telling you, like, you're, like I said,
dealing with higher minds.
You're dealing with some minds there that you're going, yep, I'm definitely not the pinnacle of the species anymore.
You know what we could do, just spitballing here before we end, is we could have like a rebellion summit every year. Don't have to make it big, and just have it be like, start out with 5 of our former guests, fly them down here, have them fly down here, and have some kind of little
powwow,
little whole day recording of
people interacting, thoughts, hanging out, having some barbecue, and up there on Liberty Mountain. Man, I'm so excited.
You mean Liberty Mountain that looks over? I'm kidding. To end on good news, since you mentioned Hannah Cox, Colorado voted to abolish the death penalty just the other day.
I saw that, man. And absolutely.
On that and a smile on my face, I don't have much more to say.
Hey, Hannah, keep up the great work out there. The fact that you got, guys like us and Amash and Massey and everybody else out there who just wants liberty for anybody and everybody that wants it, man. This is, I don't know. I get giddy at the end of these shows because I just see everything that's going on. You guys obviously, you can support the rebellion if you found a lot of lot of fun here, a lot of information, and you can support us in what we do here. It is
patreon.com/rebellionpod. You can donate as little much as $3, as much as however much you want.
Yep.
And for that, you can get some stickers. If you become a producer, you can get your name on there as a producer, and you can have whatever links you want linked up there. Not enough of them take credit for that stuff. We need to do some shout outs.
If you'd like to advertise
producers
with the Rebellion, you can advertise with us at info@rebellionpod.com. You send us whatever you want there. You bring something to our attention. If you want to advertise with us, whatever it is, maybe we'll cover it here on the show. Or maybe you will be one of the first advertisers on the show once we go live advertising here in the very near future.
And if you want an easy way to advertise, you should use it for good and not for evil. But you can leave a review on whatever podcast app you use, especially iTunes and the podcast app. We read every review. So if you put in there, my business is the best in the world, and Shane and Hazel are okay too, but I'm doing this advertisement, I'll read that. Our faces might be a little bit turned upside down, but yeah,
you better be good. And outside of that, the reviews, man, we need reviews. 5 stars, nothing like. I need to check the reviews. I'll tell you, they're coming in other ways, and you can support the campaign for Senate here at ShaneHazel.com. It's real easy. Go on there, check it out, read up, and we're going to be answering probably questions for the Friday show if you guys are interested. I know a lot of you guys have a whole bunch of questions about what we're doing. But outside of that, thank you guys so much for everything that you're doing out there. I'll tell you what, the Rebellion has taken over. There was a great article. The Rebellion takes the senator race here in Georgia, and we are trucking people, gaining more people now than ever, especially now that it's campaign season. And we just want to thank all of you guys that have been with us. We also want to thank everybody that's joining us maybe for the first or second time. We are glad to have you here. Like I always say, this is the Rebellion, your place for peace, liberty, and free markets.
We love you. We need you.
Peace.
Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.